The golden hues of the setting sun stretched dramatically across the empty highway, a contrast to the sense of foreboding in the air. A circle of motorcycles, their engines still rumbling, formed a menacing backdrop as they surrounded the figure at the center, a powerful German shepherd named Thor. He stood defiantly amidst the chaos, his once vibrant coat now dulled by dirt and splattered with streaks of blood. The echoes of the bikers' laughter rumbled around him, but the sharp focus in his eyes told a different story. Thor's training and indomitable spirit kept him standing strong despite the physical pain that coursed through him. Hidden behind a cluster of dry brush, Marcus Hale observed the situation unfold. A former military veteran turned field agent, Marcus was known for his calm demeanor under fire. Yet, this time, a raging storm brewed beneath his composed surface. Thor was not just his partner, he was family. Every agonizing moment felt like a lifetime, and Marcus wrestled with his emotions as he watched the bikers jeering and taunting his loyal companion. Reckless action could spell disaster, and he knew he had to wait for the right moment to intervene. One especially burly biker, boasting tattoos that snaked cruelly down his arms, swaggered closer. In his hand, he swung a heavy chain, preparing to unleash violence upon Thor. Yet even bloodied and battered, Thor let out a defiant growl, refusing to back down. The laughter from the gang erupted around him, each sinister chuckle amplifying the tension of the moment. Though his heart raced, Marcus took a steadying breath, his military instincts kicking in. Now was the time to make his move. Emerging from his hiding spot, Marcus's voice sliced through the haze of mockery that surrounded the gang. "Step away from him," he commanded, the cold authority woven into his tone brooking no argument. The gang, momentarily stunned, stopped their jeering and turned to face Marcus. Hearing the familiar voice, Thor summoned what little strength remained, awkwardly dragging himself closer to Marcus's side. Their bond was unbreakable, a fierce testament that this fight was far from over. The bikers hesitated, a palpable shift in the power dynamics as Marcus took a step forward. Stone, the gang leader, suddenly seemed less confident, his eyes narrowing in calculation. "You think you can take us on, Hale?" he spat, trying to regain the upper hand. But Marcus stood tall, unwavering. The threats flew thick and fast, murmurs of violence and revenge tinged with fear. "Back off or regret it," Marcus said, his gaze unwavering. He was ready for a fight, not just for himself, but for Thor. The bikers, seeing the determination in Marcus and the loyalty in Thor's eyes, began to back away, muttering curses. Relief washed over Marcus, though it was short-lived. As he knelt beside Thor, inspecting his injuries, he felt the heat of anger surge back inside him. "You're tougher than all of them combined," he murmured, gently checking for wounds. Thor absorbed the praise like a bomb, but Marcus's heart ached with worry. Just as he prepared to lift his battered partner to safety, a glint of metal caught his eye on the ground. A small USB drive, discarded carelessly in the commotion. As he picked it up, unease gripped him. The gang's confidence during their attack felt deliberate, calculated. Had they been tracking him? Were they after specific information? Questions swirled in his mind, clamoring for answers. The sound of distant sirens broke the tension, urging him into action. He wasted no time rushing Thor to the nearest emergency vet clinic, his heart racing with every passing minute. Inside the clinic, chaos reigned as distraught pet owners rushed in, but the proficient staff quickly ushered Marcus and Thor into a treatment room. Marcus paced the waiting area, his mind racing back and forth between his partner's deteriorating state and the weight of the USB drive, heavy in his pocket. Hours felt like an eternity, but finally, a veterinarian emerged. "Thor will recover, but he'll need rest and further medical care," she assured, and relief flooded over Marcus. He had harbored the darkest scenarios that could have ended this adventure irrevocably. But down the hallway he could hear Thor's muffled whines, and that was enough to anchor him back to the moment. With a sigh of gratitude, Marcus turned his attention back to the USB drive. It had tumbled from the shadows of chaos into the abyss of an unforeseen darkness. Back in his truck, he slid the drive into his laptop, an unease gnawing at him. He expected it to be empty, or worse, a dead end. Instead, what flashed across the screen sent icy tendrils of dread through him, a series of files and documents detailing weapons shipments, coded messages, and, worst of all, surveillance photos of himself and Thor from past operations. The steel serpents had been watching them. A sickening realization hit with the force of a freight train. This wasn't a random attack. The gang was coordinating a larger plot. But as he scrolled through files, a name caught his eye, making his stomach churn. Cameron Mendez, a former military operative with whom he had shared camaraderie during their days in _service. Mendez's name had surfaced amidst whispers of betrayal, connections to criminal activities that had tarnished his reputation. "This can't be real," Marcus breathed. With a jolt, he turned back to Thor. The dog groaned softly, watching him intently as if sensing his handler's turmoil. Just then, the faint hum of motorcycle engines reverberated in the distance, a warning that they were not out of danger yet. "We need to move," Marcus said, the urgency in his tone palpable. Outside, the cacophony of the steel serpents grew louder, sending his heart racing. Together, he and Thor sprang into action, readying themselves for whatever awaited them outside. With the safe house not far away, Marcus sprinted through the underbrush, guiding Thor along. They found refuge away from the chaos but knew that their respite would be short-lived. The steel serpents were relentless, and soon Marcus could hear the grinding of tires on gravel, the unmistakable sounds of a threat pursuing them. Within hours, they reached the safe house, pulling into the gravel driveway, if only for a moment. Marcus quickly assessed their surroundings. The safe house, far from prying eyes and gang members, was a solitary fortress waiting for them. The instant they stepped inside, Marcus barricaded the door, his instincts sharpening every perceived threat. "Hang in there, buddy," he whispered to Thor, kneeling beside him to check the rest of his injuries before grabbing a first aid kit. The dog flinched as Marcus tended to the wounds, but eventually settled down, his loyalty shining through his tired eyes. But even as the adrenaline ebbed, Marcus's mind raced back to the USB drive and the chaos it tied them to. With every passing moment, he felt the pressure build around them. The steel serpents weren't simply looking to ambush them. There was a deliberate agenda, a larger network of power and corruption at play. Suddenly, heavy boots echoed from outside, snapping Marcus from his reverie. His pulse quickened, sensing trouble brewing. He reached for his weapon, positioning himself behind a barricade as muffled voices broke through the stillness. "He's in there, I swear it," one of them barked. "Flush him out," came another command filled with rage. The air felt thick with impending conflict as Marcus composed himself. This house had been fortified for situations like this, equipped with emergency supplies, but would it hold against the force gathering outside? Breath steady, Marcus shared a silent thought with Thor. "This isn't just about us anymore." As the first biker kicked in the door, Marcus was ready. He clenched his weapon, heart racing as he pulled the pin on a flashbang and tossed it through a side window. The eruption of light and sound disoriented the attackers, providing him with a sliver of hope as he lunged outside for a tactical advantage. From the chaos inside, he could hear Thor barking fiercely, announcing their presence as a duo ready to fight back. "Let's show these clowns what we're made of," Marcus muttered, fervor igniting within him. As the bikers began regrouping, it became clear they were underestimated, their vicious cohort no match for the unbreakable bond forged between man and dog. The tide was turning. But soon, Stone, the gang leader, erupted in a furious rally outside. "Harlow, we know you have the drive. Hand it over." The pressure mounted, but before Marcus could formulate a response, the sound of motorcycles grew louder, and shadows loomed closer. "It's now or never," Marcus murmured, plotting an escape route. He procured a flashbang, ready to burst into their ranks. But inside, the tension simmered. Thor, even injured, moved as though sensing the anticipation in the air. This fire was bigger than they anticipated. It was a whole system of danger brewing out of sight. Fire exploded outside as one of the bikers launched a makeshift bomb through the window. Marcus's instincts kicked in, grabbing a fire extinguisher as flame flickered and spread, threatening to overtake the safe haven they fought so hard to protect. With desperate ferocity, he tackled the flames, forcing their way to freedom in the darkness as chaos erupted around them. Outside, cries erupted in confusion amongst the bikers, their confidence shaken as Marcus and Thor tore through the fray. But their respite was short-lived as the steel serpents reoriented, regrouping quickly. They were relentless now, determined to find what they sought after. Marcus and Thor sprinted into the woods, the cold air biting at their skin, alive with adrenaline. They navigated through the maze of trees and shadow, hearts pounding in synchronization. Each leap forward was a step into uncertainty, yet they pressed onward, a coordinated force against overwhelming odds. The weight of the USB drive, full of damning evidence, felt heavy against Marcus's chest. But even with danger lurking just beyond the shadows, hope flickered as dawn began to paint the world in shades of gold. They needed to regroup, scout out the next plan. Survival wasn't merely about escaping. It was about reclaiming their fight against the systemic corruption consuming their world. Eventually, they stumbled upon an old cabin, weathered yet sturdy enough to serve as temporary refuge. With bated breath, Marcus pushed the door open, careful of the creaking hinges. The dust danced in the air, a memory of forgotten days. They hadn't the time for nostalgia. "Rest here, Thor," Marcus commanded softly, helping his injured partner into the cabin. With a tactician's focus, he barricaded the door using furniture, preparing for whatever threat would ultimately follow them. Amidst the stillness, a sense of normalcy washed over him, yet the weight of the USB drive remained a constant reminder. He had to dig deeper. What exactly was at stake? What would the steel serpents do with the information? The deeper the mystery unraveled, a clearer picture of involvement emerged, a conspiracy radiating through the veins of local law enforcement. Suddenly, the tranquility shattered as a loud crash erupted outside. Marcus and Thor both froze, instincts racing. Peeking through a crack in the wall, Marcus squinted into the dim light. It wasn't a biker, it was a man, Cameron Mendez. Marcus's heart stopped, the ghost of their former camaraderie rushing through him. The loyalty he once held for Mendez now felt like a tainted memory as he stepped deeper into the shadows, gun drawn. "Mendez, what are you doing here?" Marcus demanded, each word laced with suspicion. The ex-operative held up his hands, palms visible in a gesture of peace. "James, I know you're in there," Mendez called out, his voice calm yet urgent. "I'm here to talk." "Talk fast," Marcus replied curtly, his grip tightening on his weapon, ready for any sudden move. "I'm here to warn you," Mendez continued, voice steady. "The steel serpents are merely pawns in a much bigger game. They've been infiltrated, but you're standing at the edge of something catastrophic. If you don't stop this now, everything you've built, everything you've fought for, will be destroyed." Suspicion warred with the flicker of truth glimmering in Mendez's eyes. Marcus shared a glance with Thor, who remained alert, his senses finely tuned. Did he trust Mendez or was it merely a ruse? What could you possibly know? Marcus challenged, not lowering his weapon despite the hope tugging at his heart. "If you let me in, I can help you." Mendez stepped forward cautiously. "But you have to trust me." Stubborn determination coursed through Marcus. "You've got 5 minutes," he said sharply, the walls of time closing in. They didn't have a second to waste, as Mendez's existence left shadows lurking just outside. Trust was a rare and fragile commodity, especially now. As they settled into their tense negotiation, the forest outside held secrets of its own, the air charged with impending danger and the sound of approaching engines echoing ominously. With the weight of the USB drive, this battle was far from over, and uncertain paths lay ahead. Determined to forge ahead, they would have to bind together to expose the colossal web of deceit entwining their lives. Together, as dawn broke and old loyalties crumbled into dust, they faced the darkness encroaching ever nearer. Their fight was only just beginning, and it would take every ounce of resolve they had to unravel it and emerge victorious. Facing the unknown, Marcus and Thor stood side by side, bonded by loyalty, forging a path through fear into a future where courage and the bond of companionship would light the way. They were ready to face whatever came next.